Hello, welcome to the second video on using the Max rig to practice character animation. In this video we'll take a look at how you go about working the rig. As well, we'll create a default keyframe set for the face controls, which is a good thing to do before you start animating the face. Using the save file from the previous video, let's explore the controls for the rig. The Max rig has some text hints in the scene, so let's go through them. So the first thing we're going to look at here is the control for the position and scale and rotation of the Max rig. So you can select that, and you can move it around, so you can position them in the scene. You can also rotate this. Whenever you're rotating any of the Max controls, use local coordinate as the reference coordinate system. That way the transform gizmo will line up to the object that you're transforming. So you can rotate him. You can also scale. So you can scale him. So yeah, use layout curve to position character and also scale the whole character. So there's some text hints that you see here. So let's move up to the pelvis here. Right here. I'm just going to move him down so you get a little bit of knee bends. The Max rig, he has controls for inverse kinematics, so he's got some control objects. So he has some for the feet. You can select those and move them, so you can pose his feet. Yeah, when you move the pelvis down, that controls the knee bend in the lower body. So it says use shapes to control the spine and lower body. This diamond here, you rotate that and that controls the swivel of the hips, the rotation of the hips. So you can kind of rotate them. Right here there's some little point objects that you can move around to swivel the knees. So you can see the rig is kind of like it's kind of like a marionette. You're kind of like a puppeteer. You pose your character using all these control objects. All right, the spine. The spine. I'm gonna select all the spine objects and rotate them. Just rotate them all, and then I'm gonna select the lowest one and just rotate that one. You notice if you select them all, you can rotate them and curve the selected objects. Okay, the head. There's a head control here that you can rotate to rotate his head. Let's see, just select head and head mesh to control the neck. Neck has a C in modify panel for stretching the neck. A CA is a custom attribute, so if you select the neck object, you can go over to the modify panel with that selected, and you can, for example, here's the custom attribute of stretch. So if you want to stretch or squash the neck, you can do that by animating this custom attribute. Okay, moving on. To position the arms, you have a couple of choices here. You can select the arm control objects and rotate them using forward kinematics. That's what FK stands for. What that means is you can rotate the objects and everything linked below. All the children below will rotate and move because they're linked to a parent. It's easy to manipulate and position the arms. And again, make sure that you're using local coordinates so you see the angle that you've rotated. You select those, and that's how you can control the position of the arms. You can also use what's called inverse kinematics. Inverse kinematics is kind of the reverse, where you can select the end effector and transform that, and position the objects that are all linked up in an inverse kinematic chain. To do that, it has a hint here. It says square shape to IKFK blend custom attributes and modify panel. So what we're going to do is there's a little box here, and it's like a switch. You select that and you turn the FKIK blending to 1, and instead of rotating the little control objects for the arm, you move this diamond and you use inverse kinematics. Notice the control objects, they no longer move, and you move the hand and rotate it, and everything else follows in the chain there. So before you start animating, you have to sort of decide what you want to use. If you want to use the forward kinematics, which I've done over here, or the inverse kinematic method here. So it depends what you're doing, which one you choose. I would probably bend more towards the inverse kinematic. You can mix and match. If you notice, I have inverse kinematic on one side and forward on the other. So something to think about. Anyway, that's a way to pose the arms. Right here we have some shoulder controls that you can move to add expression to your shoulders when you're animating. Body language goes a long way when you're animating, so you can animate these little guys, create better posturing, things like that. The next thing to look at here. Alright, down here we've got a little control object here. This just controls the smoothing of the model. So you can turn that up or down and control the render iterations and what you see in the viewport. You just leave it at 1. You get a little bit of smoothing going on in the scene. Okay, moving on. Another thing to think about here is to use the layer manager to hide and unhide parts of the mesh. And that's up here. Go up here to the layer manager. You can see all the stuff that's all kind of like grouped together and things. And you can hide and freeze stuff, like there's stuff he's hidden here. So, we can unhide and freeze things, unfreeze things if you want. I would recommend refreezing them. One thing to look at is the noses here. There's 4 different ones. Right now we've got nose 1 showing. We could take the nose off and we can choose another nose and select it and position it where it needs to be on the face. I'm going to move that using view coordinate. There we go. Kind of like a Muppet nose. So there's a nose there. There's other noses as well that you can unhide and position, so you can change it up a bit. There we go. So back to my other nose. Alright. So moving on. An arm swivel back here. Don't want to forget about those. You can build in. It only works when you use inverse kinematics. Okay. Now I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna take a look at the face control panel. with the move tool selected, you can move these little controllers around and change the expression on the Max Rig's face. So that's how those things work. Pretty straightforward stuff. Now we have these eyebrow controls here. They work a bit differently. You don't move these around or rotate them or anything. The controls for the eyes, they're accessed through the modify panel over here. In here, you would animate the parameters or change them to position things so that you get the expression that you want. So you can see here we can get some curve into the eyebrows to add expression. We can also manipulate the eyelids, create some eye blink animation. You can also rotate them and turn the eyelids. So you work with these one at a time. So I'll just curve the eyebrows a bit like the other one. So there we go. Pretty straightforward stuff. Now, when you're working with these crosshairs, the controls for the face, you'll want to create a default keyframe set. And the reason that you want to do this is so that you have just the default expression, so everything goes back to the way it was. And to do that, you select all the crosshairs, omitting the eye dummy objects that are used to control the eyes. And you can also omit from the selection the eyes and the pupils, because you'll want to animate those separately and create their own default keyframe sets. Alright, so with all these crosshairs selected, I'm going to turn on auto key. I'm going to move one frame ahead, and I'm just going to move all these little controls slightly to create some keyframes there. A keyframe at frame 0 and a keyframe at frame 1. The keyframe at frame 0 is the way it was originally. With all those little crosshairs still selected, I'm going to select the keyframe at frame 1 and delete it. Everything will pop back to where it was, and I have a default keyframe set. In the next video, we'll look at bringing sound into 3D Studio Max and the animation workflow using the Max Rig.